Before I begin the video, I just want to mention something. As most of you know, based on my previous video and my announcement, earlier this week I had a cold, and it resulted in a stuffy nose, a headache, some sinuses, and for a little bit it was a bit of a fever, which was basically life-threatening, but I pulled through somehow. So when you're watching this video, I just want you all to realize that I fought through these life-threatening diseases in order to provide this content for you. Now, I'm not saying that you need to stand up and clap for me, but really you should, because that's just how good of a person I am. Either way, let's begin the video. Giants versus Dallas. Oh wow, another primetime Cowboys-Giants game. How exciting is that, folks? The Giants did what they do best, which is kick a bunch of field goals, while the Cowboys did just enough necessary to win this game. Dak had a nice long touchdown to CD Lamb, and the Giants responded with yet more field goals. The Giants' field goal kicking was so contagious that the Cowboys got in on it as well, including another 60-yarder from the mutant known as Brandon Aubrey. But the Giants would have their chances late in the game to win, but they settled for a field goal, which was canceled out by a Cowboys field goal. Daniel Jones turned the ball over on downs. The Cowboys missed a field goal for 51 yards, and the Giants, down 5, had one last opportunity, but Daniel Jones' Hail Mary was intercepted. The Giants are just a pathetic fluke franchise, and so are the Cowboys. Fuck both of these teams with an iron rod. Atlanta versus New Orleans. The Falcons literally scored a touchdown off a punt, and not a punt return. The Saints returner was such a dick, he fumbled it into the end zone and it was covered for a touchdown to put Atlanta up 7-0. But the Saints responded with a touchdown run by Mormon Tim Tebow to tie it at 7. Kirk Cousins said, "I'm going to be a dick and throw an interception for no reason here," which led to yet another Mormon Tim Tebow touchdown run. The real MVP of this game, though, for Atlanta was their kicker, Young-Ho Koo. And I know it's pronounced Young Wei, but it's spelled like Young-Ho. And you know who loved Young-Ho's? That's right, Pete Rose. Rest in peace, Pete. Or rest in hell, or whatever. The Falcons' offense wasn't doing shit, but guess what? Their special teams and defense were, as they picked off Derek Carr with a pick 6 for their second non-offensive touchdown in the first half to go up 17-14. The teams exchanged field goals in the third quarter, which gave the Falcons a 20-17 lead, before they went up by 6 with another field goal early in the fourth. But the Saints responded with a long drive, which ended on a turnover on downs and a goal line stand. But this is Kirk Cousins we're talking about, so they didn't score, and the Saints got the ball back and once again got to the goal line, and this time they finished taking a 1-point lead with a minute left. But with how good most kickers are nowadays, and the fact that touchbacks start at the 30, teams only need about 25 to 30 yards to set up a game-winning field goal. And that's exactly what the Falcons did, as Young-Wei Koo kicked a game-winning 58-yard field goal to seal the win for the Falcons, 26-24. Chicago versus the Rams. The game began pretty nondescriptly with a couple field goals, but then Matthew Stafford shit the ball out of his butthole deep in Rams territory, which led to a Chicago Bears touchdown to put them up 7-6. Somebody left the door open on this one, which caused it to go way wide to the right. Caleb Williams played a pretty solid game overall, but he still did miss a couple chances. But nevertheless, the game was pretty boring again until late in the third quarter, when Williams threw what is probably the best throw of his career thus far for a touchdown in the vote end zone. Why, thank you so much, NFL, for reminding me to vote. Otherwise, I wouldn't remember to vote for myself for president. Anyway, the Rams responded in the fourth quarter with a touchdown run. They went for 2, but they didn't get it, which would become a big deal as the Bears responded with a long DeAndre Swift touchdown run after a beautiful handoff from Caleb Williams to go up by 2 scores. Stafford then threw some amazing throws unironically to set up a field goal, which the Rams made to put them down 6. The Rams had 2 chances late in the fourth, but Matthew Stafford showed why he's on track to be the losingest quarterback ever. The first possession ended on a punt, and the second one ended with a game-losing interception to drop the Rams to 1-3. That's a manly fucking handshake right there. Cincinnati versus Carolina. The game began with a long drive by the Panthers, which ended with a goal line stand. Andy Dalton then reminded people why he's Andy Dalton by throwing an interception, which set up a Bengals touchdown run to put them up 7. But Andy Dalton also reminded people why he's not Bryce Young by leading the Panthers to a touchdown drive. But the Bengals would respond when Joe Burrow inspired Jamar Chase to bounce off of people like a pinball all the way for a long touchdown run, which is one of the best touchdowns I've ever seen. But the Panthers did not blink as Dalton threw another touchdown to tie it up at 14. Burrow then led a go-ahead touchdown drive right as the first half was ending to go up by 7 at halftime. After a sneaky first down conversion run by Burrow, the Bengals then went up 2 scores on another touchdown drive to open the second half, and then 3 scores on a long field goal late in the third. The Panthers answered with a touchdown to make it a 10-point game, and then Joe Burrow threw one of the worst interceptions I've ever seen, which helped the Panthers cut it to a 7-point game. But have no fear, the Bengals knocked through another 3-pointer, and then Andy Dalton had the most clutch first down run of all time on this play, which ended the game to seal the 10-point loss, or win, depending on how you view it, for the Bengals. Technically, this was a battle of pussies since both Bengals and Panthers are cats. Denver versus the Jets. I gotta be honest, this game was absolutely horrific. I don't even really feel like recapping it because there were so many punts and there were so many penalties and there was so much bullshit. It was terrible weather. Let's just get to the very end, I guess. The Jets, and Aaron Rodgers especially, had 3 drives in the last 6 minutes, down by 1 point, with a chance to win this game. A game in which Bo Nix didn't even reach positive passing yards until the second half. But their first opportunity ended on a Rodgers sack. Their second opportunity ended on another Rodgers sack on 4th down. But after a Denver missed field goal, the Jets got into field goal range, and Rodgers just could not will his kicker to make the 50-yard field goal. This is what separates Rodgers from guys like Tom Brady. Unironically, we all know that Tom Brady's kicker would have made this kick, but either way, just an absolutely embarrassing loss, one of the most embarrassing losses for Aaron Rodgers in his career. I mean, it might not be as bad as losing to Josh Rosen, but it's really close. Philadelphia versus Tampa Bay. I know a lot of you are looking forward to me recapping this game because you say, oh, well, you picked the Eagles to win and they got their ass kicked. And guess what? I don't really give a fuck, because I learned a long time ago that no matter how the Eagles play, when they muff punts and they give up touchdowns, they don't do anything offensively until garbage time, and they end up losing in a blowout, or whether they end up winning, or whether they end up going to the Super Bowl, and whether Jalen Hurts ends up playing well in the Super Bowl, it all doesn't matter, because short of winning the Super Bowl, Eagles haters and other fans of other teams are gonna say whatever the fuck they want anyway, so I might as well be an obnoxious jackass about them winning every single week, because guess what? Who gives a shit in the big picture? There's no point in being a rational or reasonable fan, because people are always going to be talking shit about your team no matter what. Never forget that. But on the other hand, I would not mind if the Eagles fired Sirianni. I do think it's very funny that Baker Mayfield has basically identical stats in Tampa to Tom Brady. Looks like my system quarterback narrative wasn't wrong after all, bitches. Houston versus Jacksonville. The Jackoffs were looking for their first win of the season, and they came oh so close. Started off well with a muffed punt, which led to a touchdown pass to put them up 7-0 early on, but Houston would answer to tie it. Eventually, though, Houston would take a lead in the first half, and the teams would trade field goals to give Houston a 4-point lead at halftime. It was yet another disappointing day for Trevor Lawrence. The big moment of the game was when the Jaguars broke off a long run for nearly a touchdown that would have put them up double digits, but instead they got pushed out of bounds inside the 5 and ended up turning it over on downs, which led to no points, but they would get the ball back again with the lead to try and put the game away, but Lawrence could not do it, and the ending was not surprising as CJ Stroud threw a game-winning touchdown to give the Texans a 4-point win. The Jags have now lost 9 straight games with Trevor Lawrence as their starting quarterback. Fire Urban Meyer again. Minnesota versus Green Bay. Sam Darnold came out in the first half and gave the Packers a kiss of death. Get it? Because he had mono? It's funny, because mono is a kissing disease. Anyway, the Packers missed a couple field goals and Darnold was just dealing, while Jordan Love continued to throw interceptions, which put the Packers in a very deep hole, no offense to Kim Kardashian. It wasn't until the Packers were down 28-0 that they finally got shit started with a touchdown throw from Love to one of their irrelevant receivers to make it 28-7 at halftime. Then Darnold looked like Jets Darnold by throwing another interception, which led to another Packers touchdown to make it a 14-point game. Darnold then got strip sacked, which, you guessed it, led to another Packers touchdown and a 2-point conversion to make it a 6-point game. Finally, the Vikings nutted up and got a field goal to make it a 2-possession game. Love paid tribute to Brett Favre before the game by wearing his jersey and also by having a shaky performance. Get it? Shaky because Favre has Parkinson's disease? Oh, you think that's too far? Well, suck my dick. The Vikings had multiple opportunities to put the game away for good. Love then threw a 4th touchdown pass, but the onside kick failed and the Vikings ended up hanging on to win by 2 to improve to 4-0. I know at some point that terrible game from Darnold was coming. I know it's going to happen eventually. Is Malik Willis better than Jordan Love? Indianapolis versus Pittsburgh. These goddamn fucking Steelers. The one time I fucking picked them to win, of course they end up losing. They're just not comfortable being outside of 10-7 or 9-8. They need to be mediocre. Anyway, as for the game, they fell behind 17-0 early on after a couple fumbles and mistakes. Anthony Richardson has 4 career wins, and in 3 of them, he left early with an injury. Following a missed field goal from Indy, the Steelers fought their way back. Justin Fields had a good statistical game, while Joe Flacco, remember him, he won a Super Bowl once, put the Colts up by 14 early in the 4th, but Fields ran for another score, and then threw for a touchdown after Colts field goal, which made it a 3-point game. Much like with Chicago, Fields was unable to come through in the clutch. Statistically, he is one of the worst clutch quarterbacks of all time. And the Steelers turned the ball over on downs to seal their 3-point loss. Washington versus Arizona. Arizona did their usual shit to start games, which is when Marvin Harrison Jr. catches a touchdown and then proceeds to do nothing the rest of the time. In the meantime, Washington continued their rampage offensively, and Jaden Daniels looks like a superstar. Geez, a dual-threat quarterback superstar in Washington? I've never heard of that before. There's no way this could go wrong. And some might say I'm just being a bitter Eagles fan, but I don't know. I'm just not afraid of Washington. Either way, in this game, though, the Cardinals did need to be afraid of Washington because they took and whipped them belt to ass for about 2.5 hours. It was pretty embarrassing, to be honest with you. And Jaden Daniels does look pretty good, but so did Robert Griffin III. So while Washington might actually have a direction they're going now, Cardinals, on the other hand, just kind of seem to be going nowhere. Kind of like single moms who are 30 pounds overweight with a bunch of tattoos and use dating apps all the time. Kansas City versus the Chargers. Oh wow, you're not gonna believe this, guys, but the Chiefs started the game playing like crap and falling behind by double digits, and Mahomes had a terrible interception while also taking out Rashee Rice. And folks, this isn't the first time a drive's ended poorly for Rashee Rice. Then the Chiefs did what they always do, which is after falling behind by double digits, they get serious. Mahomes had a beautiful touchdown pass. Their defense stiffened up, not giving up any points the rest of the game, and you know the story. They tied it with a field goal, and then eventually they led a go-ahead touchdown drive with about 6 minutes left to go up by 7 in Kareem Hunt's gracious return to the Chiefs roster. Justin Herbert, it's just really sad what's happened with him. I used to think that he was going to be top 2 or 3 quarterback in the league, and now I just kind of expect him to be mediocre. Anyway, the Chiefs once again win a one-score game to improve to 4-0 despite Mahomes playing like crap. Las Vegas versus Cleveland. I picked the Raiders to win, and to be honest with you, I was a little bit spooked when Cleveland came out and actually looked competent offensively. Sexual assaults aside, Deshaun Watson actually had a pretty decent game, but guess what? I don't give a fuck, and I'm happy that he lost. After a quick start, the game kind of slowed down, but the Raiders eventually took a double-digit lead late in the third and were in prime position to start the fourth with the ball up 10, but their running back was a stupid dickhead and fumbled it, which was returned for a touchdown by the Browns to make it a 4-point game. Yes, 4-point game, not 3-point game, because the Browns kicker missed the extra point, but Deshaun Watts under the towel would have 3 more drives down 4 with a chance to win, but the first 2 ended in punts, and the last one ended with him taking a sack on 4th and 3 to seal the loss. You just hate to see great people lose like this, don't you, folks? San Francisco versus New England. It's pretty apparent, even early on, that Gerard Mayo's a terrible fucking coach and has an outdated philosophy. But at least Jacoby Brissett shut up all the haters like me by throwing a touchdown pass early. Oh, wait a minute, never mind, it was a pick 6. The Patriots' ineptitude offensively continued while their top 3 pick rots on the bench watching a terrible quarterback lose games for them. Anyway, George Kittle had an amazing touchdown catch. The only touchdown drive of the game that the Patriots had was set up off of a whiff kickoff return by the 49ers, which made the game fake competitive, but the game was never really in doubt. 49ers went back up by 17. By the way, shout out to Christian McCaffrey, who probably will miss the season, or at least almost all of the season. I want to shout out all of his fantasy owners because they drafted him first overall, because that's who really matters. It's not about Christian McCaffrey's well-being, it's about all the fantasy owners who drafted him high. Patriots defense is actually pretty good, but it didn't matter because their offense is so inept, and the 49ers won as expected. Just a little rant here. I have no idea whether Drake May is going to become good or not, and I'm sure that if Drake May was playing, he would take a lot of sacks, but the people who say, oh, you can't put him out there with such a terrible offensive line, I'm sorry, what the fuck are you waiting for? Are you waiting for the Patriots to have 5 all-pros in the offensive line before you put him out there? Guess what? When you're a top 3 pick, you're supposed to be a fucking difference maker, guys, okay? I don't understand this thought process. Guess what? Jaden Daniels and CJ Stroud, over the last 2 years, in so recent history, they didn't need to sit behind a crappy quarterback to know how to be good. So the Patriots literally are gaining nothing by trotting Jacoby Brissett out there every week to throw for 120 yards and put up 10 points. It's so goddamn stupid. And I don't know why it bothers me so much, but it does. If you don't want to play a quarterback until he has an absolutely perfect situation around him, guess what? You're going to be waiting for a really long time. Baltimore versus Buffalo. Following a riveting pregame speech about 9/11, the Bills came out and promptly collapsed just like the Towers. Derrick Henry had one of the best games of his probably Hall of Fame career, and this game was never really competitive. The Ravens dropped their dong all over the Bills, taking an 18-point lead at halftime. There was a brief moment after the Bills scored a touchdown and got the ball back where it looked like this might be a game, but Josh Allen was killed on a sack and fumble. The Ravens went up on a Lamar touchdown run to go back up by 18. The Bills missed a field goal. Let me know if you've heard that before the Ravens extended their lead to 25 on this incredible Derrick Henry touchdown pass, which traveled farther in the air than any completion Tom Brady had in his last Super Bowl win, and I'm only half joking. Either way, it was a dominant win for the Ravens, and a concerning loss for the Bills. Tennessee versus Miami. If these two Monday Night Football games were the Stallone brothers, this one would be Frank Stallone. Shout out to Norm. Will Levis left the game early, but not before throwing an interception, goddammit. Let's check in on how Tyler Huntley's doing. Yeah, that's about what I thought. The first 2.5 quarters were literally dog shit and field goals, and the Titans had a 9-6 lead before they finally got a touchdown off of a wildcat formation. One of my favorite plays of the game, Tyler Huntley somehow overthrowing Tyreek Hill running at full speed. Do you know how hard that is to do? Anyways, did you know that Tyler Huntley has as many Pro Bowls as Joe Burrow? It's not a troll. The Titans kicked a couple more field goals to go up by 16 before the Dolphins finally got into the end zone to make it a 10-point game, but they failed on their 2-point conversion. Huntley then committed a safety with intentional grounding in the end zone before the Titans expanded it to a 19-point lead, which also doubled as the final score to win 31-12 in a very forgettable game. Detroit versus Seattle. Talk about fireworks. The Lions started off with a touchdown to go up 7-0, and then a DK Metcalf fumble set up another Lions touchdown to put them up 14-0 early. But the Seahawks would not go down easy, unlike my ex-wife, as they scored a touchdown to make it 7 before the Lions responded again with another touchdown to go up by 14 again. Holy shit, another lateral play. That's so awesome, but it led to no points for Seattle. In fact, there were no points scored again until 10 minutes left in the third when the Seahawks cut it to 7. Jared Goff, who literally set the NFL record for most pass attempts without an incompletion tonight, had this unbelievable dime downfield which set up another touchdown. Oh, and by the way, that touchdown was scored by Jared Goff on a receiving touchdown. What a night for the former first overall pick. On this night, there was nobody beating Goff, at least on the field. Maybe in the privacy of their own homes there was some jerking off, but not on this field. Regardless, the Seahawks had the ball down 8 in the fourth quarter, but they had to punt, and the Lions then capitalized with a touchdown to make it a 15-point game. And despite a safety by Jared Goff, the Seahawks never really threatened again, and the final score was 42-29. A very entertaining game, which has become the norm for these two franchises when playing against each other. Now it's time for the Week 4 awards. The best throw of the week goes to Patrick Mahomes. In an otherwise pretty boring game, in an underwhelming season thus far for Mahomes, he still showed that he has the ability to throw deep every now and then with this beautiful touchdown throw. If only he would do this more often. The worst throw of the week belonged to Mahomes' good friend Joe Burrow. Burrow's actually had a pretty good season thus far, but this is really just a bunch of cardinal sins in one play. Throwing the ball late and throwing the ball across your body over the middle almost never leads to anything good, and that's what we saw here. It helped keep the Panthers in the game for a little while longer. The puppy of the week once again belongs to Scooby. We haven't seen a dynasty like this since the Russell Celtics in the 60s, and honestly, this might put the Russell Celtics dynasty to shame because Scooby is just so talented and so handsome and so demure. Look at that face. We go to my Thursday night football prediction between the Buccaneers and the Falcons. Falcons are 2-2, and one of the rules of the universe is that Kirk Cousins can never be too far above or below 500, and if he does, it results in either a serious injury or a global pandemic. With the Falcons being at 500 and with the Buccaneers playing pretty well this season outside of one game, I think the Buccaneers are going to do just enough to go into Atlanta and win this one 24-17.